Hello, hello, hello. We are live. Oh yeah. And Mono's here, by the way. I don't think he's in the mood to say hi, but hello anyway. Welcome to Range Woman, the variety show. I am Lala Angela Wang. By the way, if I sound a little bit ditzy today is what I call my Dixie day. And it's completely on topic today by chance. So today I'm interviewing the amazing Liz Surgeon, and she is a functional nutritionist and women's health coach. And she specializes in women and the hormone and the cycle. So when I invited Liz to come on, I didn't realize it's gonna be so prompto, and it just happened that today's day 2 of my cycle. So the universe has got a very interesting way of planning things out on episode 22 of Range Woman, the variety show. So Range Woman is essentially a show that I have created in the desire to introduce more amazing women into my world, but also spreading the word around how, as women, we can actually really have everything that we ever wanted. And my motto is that we can all have it all, just probably not all at the same time. And today, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Liz onto the show because, in my opinion, she is the coach and the supporter that every woman needs, especially if you're a range woman, you're going to need her on your side. So without further ado, let's welcome Liz onto the show, and please feel free to interact with us and connect with us anytime you desire. Hello, Liz.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. This is super exciting.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for getting up early because I know we're in completely different time zones at the moment. And thank you for coming on.
It's just about getting light now. I think when I first started logging on, it's like, it's still dark outside. But yeah, we're about there now.
Yay! Well, so apparently this is something I have found out that not many people know about you. You are a bit of a retired golfer.
I call myself a retired golfer. Yeah, I had a very misspent youth playing golf, which obviously kept me out of trouble. Spent all of my younger years, all of my teens, kind of right up till when I went to university, playing quite very competitive golf at like a national level. So, and even looked at universities to continue playing golf and do golf scholarships and stuff in the US. But then, focused on the academics like a good girl. But yeah, I continued a bit into my 20s and then kind of realized when I was in London, played down there. But actually, it takes so much time. And I had my corporate job and I was playing golf. And yeah, so I was like, I've done this for a long time. I won't do it quite as often. So now I call myself a retired golfer because several decades later, I probably play once a year, dust down the clubs, but I've still got it. So I've got a lot of hustle. So I dust them down, like, oh, right, yeah. And I'm like, okay,
just keeping the cobwebs off.
Yeah, exactly. Off it goes down off the first. So,
there you go.
Yeah, you've always got the swing there.
So how did the gopher turned into functional nutritionist? Because we were talking just as we jump on, you actually had a couple of career options, or more like when you were at university, you had a couple of options that you get to pick, but you picked a different option than what you were actually thinking you might be taking down a different path on.
Well, this is quite interesting because this actually goes very much to, I guess, some of that like masculine and feminine energy. And I guess when I was at school, sort of careers advice and the ability to understand all the different career options to you, it was kind of like, I mean, we're talking 1998 when I left sort of high school. The internet was fairly new. So my idea was I could be an architect, which is obviously where we had something in common. Because for me, the whole creative side. I'm very creative, very visual, but I'm like good at maths, physics, that logical side. So it's this perfect little combination. But it wasn't something that was especially encouraged because it was a long time to qualify. Didn't know if you would, Liz, you don't know if you would like it. So stick a bit to what you know. You're good at science. Go with biology. So I was like, oh, okay. And then that has always been not a regret, because I've absolutely loved where my life has taken me and the opportunities I've had. So I don't think you can ever sort of make those regrets. But having that creative mix, and I think now as a functional nutritionist in a slightly different way, and I guess as a business owner, I still get the opportunity to very much be creative and strategic in the same way. And I think for me now it comes out in more entrepreneurial type, in a more entrepreneurial way. And it did throughout my whole corporate career as well, because I was always very lucky to have an opportunity to work for people who just let me use that kind of entrepreneurial creative nature to solve problems. So yes, that was kind of like my path. Yeah, I didn't do architecture at university. I chose applied biology and genetics, very different. Then went into corporate world, working for large pharmaceutical companies, which I worked for one big US company for about 10 years. Then resigned, did some consulting, figured out what I wanted to do, and then went down the nutrition path.
Did you had to study nutrition like halfway after you obviously got into corporate? Was it something slightly different to what you were actually doing in corporate?
Yeah, very different. So my corporate role was in marketing. So I did marketing, really interesting areas like HIV, autoimmune conditions. So it's very much somewhat linked a little bit to what I do now. And I was very fortunate. So I did a lot of work with clinicians and patients. And that's the stuff that I really enjoyed, doing the stuff that was really supporting clinicians around education, patients around their disease. But for me, I felt just that one step too far removed, which is why then when I came out of that, I kind of always felt that something wasn't completely fulfilling me. So I enjoyed my corporate career, and I very much thrived, had an amazing experience, worked abroad, lived in Chicago for a few years, and it was fantastic. But there was always something that wasn't really fulfilling me. And it wasn't until I kind of was like, right, I need to be working with people and actually helping and supporting them. And there's always that, and I see this in a lot of the women that I work with now. I think having come from that background of being a high achiever, doing all the stuff, like taking part in all the clubs, meeting my own expectations, exceeding others' expectations, pleasing, doing, giving, all that sort of masculine energy. I think when I took that into the corporate world, obviously that put me in great stead, except it just perpetuated it more so, in the fact that it took me more out of that feminine energy where I am being maybe more creative, I am leaning back, I am using my intuition, and that balance of do, be, just like I knew inside that wasn't who I was. And you kind of feel like you go into the office and you put on a bit of a slightly different persona, and it kind of ended up being like this two life, where you then go home and be really silly, stupid Liz, and fooling around, having a laugh, doing whatever, being obviously so much more feminine, but that had that perception that didn't really belong in the workplace. So I definitely had these two kind of personas going on, and that is exhausting. But it's not now until I reflect back as to what was really kind of going on and why there was that like lack of fulfillment. So then I retrained as a functional nutritionist. So because I had the science background, I could go straight in and go in at master's level and then go on from there.
Oh, wow. So what is a functional nutritionist? I mean, is it the same as I don't even know, a normal nutritionist?
So it kind of all depends on the different training you do. So I call myself a functional nutritionist. So I'm a registered nutritionist in the UK. And actually there was quite a lot of Aussies on my course. So I think it's the same sort of qualification. It's all kind of transfers across borders.
Yeah, must be.
And then I've also studied with the Institute for Functional Medicine. And then that's obviously the functional side of things. So it's a bit like integrative health as well, some people call it. So basically it's looking at the root cause of disease. So I look a lot deeper than I guess than traditional medicine. That's what I like, because I felt when I was working on the pharmaceutical side, it was all very surface. It's just very much treating the symptoms. And I was always like, what's actually going on? Why are these, obviously with the exception of HIV and those types of conditions, but with some of the more chronic long-term lifestyle conditions, say with the autoimmune conditions, I was like, what is it that has got this person to this situation? You know, how they're feeling now. So it's really looking at the multiple root causes and really understanding where someone's been, what makes up their story, where they are now, and then what we can do from the root cause to help them get to where they want to be.
That is so good. So it's a bit like, so obviously with a lot of my clients, my job is to really get to the root cause of their emotions and their sabotages and their beliefs that's preventing them from living a fulfilled life. It's almost like what you're doing is kind of from a nutrition and a health perspective. So how do you find out what a root cause of a disease or symptom is?
You work with someone and understand their history. So there's some areas that are quite significant that will have had an impact. So the emotional side of things is huge. So emotional stress, unresolved emotional trauma, and that could be something quite significant, or it could be having your heart broken at 18, and that has then left, I guess, a trauma that you've kind of never resolved, but it then pops up in various patterns. And when it comes to a lot of those emotional traumas, you know, the body keeps the score. You can like push it down. And those of us who are great at being in our masculine energy, that is what we've practiced all our life. Do not have time for these emotions. So let's just ignore them and carry on. But they catch up with you. Your body knows that they're there. They catch up with you. So there's very much that side of things. And that's something that, you know, I explore with the ladies that I work with. Then gut health is absolutely huge. Everything that so much that we expose to in our environment these days are very disruptive for gut health. And for a lot of ladies, they're like, but my digestion's fine. I don't suffer from bloating. I think, but actually there's so much else going on, and what is going on in your gut can cause inflammation elsewhere in your body without you even putting the two together. So that's huge. Nervous system, so other types of stressors makes a big, so there's quite a few different areas. Detoxification, so obviously I work with hormones, women's health, and detoxification efficiency is huge as well in that sort of circumstance. So there's a various things that will contribute. So I look at someone's story, understand where they've been, even where they've lived, various things that's happened at like various points, and then you can get an idea of where they are and where the resilience is. Usually it's a gradual reduction in resilience.
Okay. It makes so much sense, but yet we don't really often think about these things, do we? It's like, oh, it just happened, maybe just because I have been eating fried chicken for the past 2 days.
Exactly. But it's like so often like people put up with so much, especially in women's health. They, from such a young age, when you start, you know, having monthly cycles, at first they're going to be a little bit disruptive, as like your brain and your ovaries, they all start communicating. But then they should get into a lovely, nice, natural pattern. But what ends up happening is either before you get to that nice natural pattern, or because of other things, so diet, lifestyle, exposure to toxins, stressors, that cycle gets put out of balance. But your body will be telling you that by having painful periods, having very heavy periods, having mood swings before your periods, feeling very low mood before your periods, acne, all these very sort of typical things that say it's the time of the month, I feel like this because it's this. Or people don't realize that the link between the time month and these sorts of feelings, and then they start sort of beating themselves up. It's like, last week I was feeling really great, now I don't, what's wrong with me? I was really motivated, now I don't even want to get out of bed. And then they feel bad about themselves. But these things are very common, but they're not normal. So it's amazing when you start understanding that, and where that takes you is starts to become quite powerful.
That's top cycles then.
What was the original question?
Functional nutritionist. What do you do and what does it mean? I think that was the very first question. Anyway, so let's talk cycles. How much are all these things? Like, I guess it's like what you said, right? It's almost like we are already treating it like it's a norm that when my cycle comes, it's gonna be painful periods. I'm gonna have mood swings and all these things. But are you essentially telling us it doesn't have to be this way?
Absolutely. That's just become kind of what's expected. It's kind of become normalized, and it's become medicalized, and a lot of that has only happened probably over the last 50 years with the advent of the contraceptive pill, and then where that's gone, and how that is now often very widely used to help treat some of these symptoms. But actually, that's where I was going. Actually, it's your body's way. So these symptoms is what you should listen to, because it's your body's way of telling you that something isn't right. So, if you had high blood pressure and it was slowly getting higher over time, you wouldn't ignore it. You would do something about it. You would go and see someone, or you would make some lifestyle changes. The same is exactly true. And it is our monthly cycle is this incredible dance and waltz of all of our different hormonal systems, our adrenals, our thyroids, and all of the different sex hormones, and they're all communicating with each other. So if something isn't right, it's like, well, is something off with the adrenals? Now, the adrenals is absolutely huge. And for ladies who are very much in that masculine, overachieving kind of energy, that is something that over time really takes a bit of a pounding. And I definitely experienced this. But that then has then an impact on your monthly cycle and on those hormones. So understanding that those symptoms aren't normal, then thinking, I need to do something about it. I need to understand why this is going on, because if you leave that going over a long period of time, as you might do if you had high blood pressure, it will lead to either them worsening, other things becoming more. But the problem is when we take hormonal contraceptive to treat it, all you're doing is just masking it. You're just like kind of bypassing it, so you don't experience the symptoms, and life becomes a little bit easier, but it's all still going on under the hood. So then when you need to come off them, or for whatever reason in the future, other things start to pop up, which is what I see with some of the ladies who have been through that and are much further down that journey, and other things are now popping up, like autoimmune conditions, chronic fatigue. And you kind of look back at their history, it's like, these were the little clues right at the beginning.
Right.
Like, live with it every day. And it's quite, fairly simple to start understanding what's going on, and actually just listening to it and doing something about it.
That is so good. I also love when you said in the pre-interview form that you said a range woman need to understand, honor, and harness her energetics and attune to her feminine flow. Tell me a little bit more about that, because it's so beautifully written. And I think it's something that we're not taught, right? It wasn't until I learned from one of my former coaches, Marina J, she talked about receiving. I realized, oh my God, I'm so much in my masculine, and really honoring our flow, honoring our cycle is actually part of being feminine. So if you could maybe elaborate a little bit about that, please.
Absolutely. So on an energetics level, as we move through our cycle, we have different energetic peaks, highs, and then natural ebbs. I wouldn't say lows, but it's more of an ebb. So when we go through our cycle, we'll have, so day one is the first full day of your first bleed, so proper bleed. And as you go through that part of your cycle, generally you are going to be slightly more sort of lower energy, more introvert, more reflective during this time. But unfortunately, this is often a time, because we don't really build it into our lives, where we have deadlines, we've got things to do, we've got commitments, etc. And we carry on. So we just try and carry on, head down, masculine energy, just do it, carry on. What ends up happening is this should be a time when it's our bodies and the world's, the universe, natural way of saying, just lean back. Just, we're shedding, we're renewing, and we're getting ready to go into the next beautiful cycle. Because when we come out of that, we naturally, from a hormonal perspective, cortisol levels will be on the lower side of the monthly cycle. Our estrogen, our feel-good estrogen, is rising. And as you come out of that, that's then when you move very much into your productive, your creative, your social energy. So leaning back during your period is an opportunity to go, okay, let's now reset and think about the month ahead. What's my intention for the month ahead? Where do I want to be? Where do I want to go? So that when we go into that first part, we're then going, yes, now I've got the energy, now I'm doing all the stuff. And then you get to your peak at ovulation, where you're like just feeling so radiant, you're doing amazing things, everything's coming together, and then progesterone starts to take over, and you'll still definitely be in your flow. But what ends up happening for a lot of ladies as they go into the second part of their cycle is that's when the energy really starts to drop. And that's when a lot of ladies will start to experience some of those PMT, PMS type symptoms. They might start to experience low mood. And that's when they go into that feeling of, but last week I was like on top of the world. I was doing all the stuff. And now I just want to be in my PJs all day. And that's where the extremes should not be that extreme. However, it's about honoring it, and actually that productive during that sort of week before your period, you should still be able to do and feel like you can do a lot of the things, but the types of tasks you want to do might shift. So it might be a lot of planning type tasks, organizing type tasks. You probably won't be in such a creative space, but it's about honoring that, and it's starting to honor the leaning back more so, ready again to go back into like those first few days of the next cycle, so that you can kind of then, like you say, receive the cycle, release, and then again go through the flow. But this is a beautiful balance. And then there's just slight nuances, in the second part of your cycle, your cortisol levels are always going to be slightly higher. You're going to have a slightly increased calorific need during that time. But when you start to understand this and able to work with it, you can plan in advance how you look at your weeks, how you plan deadlines, how you plan social events. How often when you're in that amazing doing creative mode, you're like, yes, awesome, let's get everyone together in 2 weeks time. We're going to have the most amazing party, event, brainstorming session, whatever it is that you're going to be doing. That time comes, oh, we've just organized it either right before your period's going to start, or smack bang in the middle, when you're not in that brain space. There's changes in our brain state, how the two hemispheres talk to each other at different parts in your cycle as well. So But when you start to understand, it's like, well, okay, we just need to put that event back another week, then I'm going to be back on form. Rather than then going into it going, oh, now I just really go, I'm not in the right space for this. Everyone's relying on me, and you're just putting more pressure on yourself completely unnecessarily.
And also because you don't feel like socializing, you're just like, oh my God, what am I doing? Just created that event when I don't even feel like socializing.
Then it ends up becoming these big up and down. And the same is true of exercising. You know, we end up like pounding it in the gym and we're like, yes, we're on it. And we just do it all month exactly the same. But our body doesn't respond to it like that. You know, there's different ways we can exercise at the beginning of the cycle and the end of the cycle to get the most out of it. But just pounding it out, like I used to be massively into CrossFit, and I probably still would be if I lived near the gym. We moved. But, you know, doing that flat out for an entire cycle is not actually a productive way for like building muscle, for fat burning, for just your nervous system. So as soon as you start understanding these beautiful like ebbs and flows of those energetics and tuning into your body and just listening, because we know what our body is saying. Like you were saying, you know, when you're in your day to day, this is your day, and you can listen to that and honor it, or you can just put your head down and plow on.
Yeah.
But how effective really in the long term is putting your head down, plowing on. It doesn't really get you to where you need to be, and you'll just end up being more exhausting at a particular time. So when you start to understand it, can look at your diary, your planner, and think, okay, I know now what's going to be happening at these different times of the month. So let's kind of organize and let's go and let's ride that natural energetic wave. That is exciting, because that is where we do have superpowers, and that is how we as women are wired. But we're never taught that.
No.
That should be some of the stuff that we're taught at school. And at school, it's generally like, this is the menstrual cycle. Here are some of the facts. It's about creating babies, which you might not want to do yet. So let's talk then about how we don't get pregnant. End of. So now we'll talk about how we kind of need to mute the menstrual cycle until we want to have babies. It's just,
it's just like, it's just a tap. It'll be on like that, and off like that.
Exactly.
So would I be right in saying when you work with your clients and creating their nutrition plans as well, there's a different kind of like during, I guess, what's the right way to say it? So there will be different kind of plans according to your cycle as well. Do we eat differently according to our cycles?
You can do. There's definitely, if you want to sort of take this biohacking to the next kind of level, you can definitely honor your cycle from that perspective. But really you need to be, that is kind of taking the next step on. Obviously there's going to be a way of eating that's generally so much more supportive for hormone health, and it's about getting on top of that first, and then you can definitely fine tune things to support yourself at different times of your cycle. But at the beginning, it doesn't need to be necessarily that complicated. You know, some of the things is just understanding at the first part of your cycle, your body's kind of like detoxing. So there may be more things you want to do to support the liver. So there's very simple things you can do at that point. But really, the foundation is really just getting understanding, you know, the foods that are going to be supportive of hormonal health, that are going to help lift any of those monthly symptoms that you experience, any of those, even just at an energetic level, you know, foggy brain. So many people kind of suffer from that foggy brain, or they have imbalances where they're absolutely exhausted in the morning. It takes them a while to get going, and then they start going in the afternoon. You know, that they're kind of some of the other, your body's other ways of saying something's not right. So let's actually go back and actually look what's happening.
Yeah.
Think about eating the right food that's going to be supporting your energy throughout the day, supporting your hormonal system. And your body naturally wants to rejuvenate. That is what it does. That's what it does best. The challenge is, in the modern world, we kind of make its life quite difficult to do that. So as soon as we start actually giving it what it needs, giving it the right sort of nutrition, it's like, oh, thank you. Oh, yes. And then it gets right into its groove. And suddenly it is like a light bulb. Suddenly you can start to feel so much better. So the nutrition is important. And like I said before, gut health is also an important thing, and the nervous system. You know, they're kind of like your foundational pieces. And then you can start getting a lot more clever as to what you do at different times in your cycle with regards to food as well.
So I can imagine a lot of, I don't like to call us busy women. I prefer to call us active women. We'll be sitting there watching the show or listening to the show going like, okay, there's all these things, but I haven't got the time. It just sounds so complicated. So what would you say? I'm going to ask 3 simple steps that an active woman can start really taking charge of their own energetics, their own gut health, you know, even their what's the other things? Anyway, all the things that you said. Foggy mind.
Yeah.
Obviously, the first thing is they could come and work with you. But if they wanted to sort of start taking action and just really take some really active and immediate steps, what are some of the things that they could start doing in their day-to-day that's easy, interchangeable?
Absolutely. So just keeping it very, very simple. So obviously the first thing is the type of nutrition, the fuel that you're giving yourself. And a big thing is sort of changing your perspective around what it is that you're putting on the plate and what it gives to you. So many people just eat to fill a hole, but actually what you're eating, it's all biochemistry. So what you put in your body breaks down and uses as energy, as nourishment to do whatever it needs to do with all the different hormonal systems, etc. We never really think about that, and we don't need to think about that. We don't need to make it complicated. We just need to appreciate that is why we eat. So looking at the food on your plate and looking at the nutrient density of the food, so making sure you've got these, reducing the sugar and the refined carbohydrate and replacing that with your roots, shoots and fruits. So they're like your good sources of sort of carbohydrates. Also, like the pulses and legumes are going to be helpful there. Good quality protein, whether that's animal-based or fish-based protein or plant-based protein, but making sure you've got good quality. And then fat. So many ladies just don't. I think that's shifting a lot, but it's obviously like left over from like the 80s low fat, 90s low fat. But so many women still don't have enough fat, and that is so critical for hormone production. So making sure you've got that balance there. And I would say when thinking about that, if you just need to think about one meal, make it breakfast. Whatever time that is, whether it's at 7 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock, depending on what time you like to have that first meal, make that your priority, because that sets you up for the rest of the day. Often when we think about what we're eating, usually people have their evening meal as the main meal, and then we're going to bed. It's like, okay, so I've just skimped on breakfast, may have grabbed a slice of toast, a breakfast bar or something, maybe just a coffee. Then I've had lunch, which is a bit of a grab and go sandwich. Okay, body's still not really got much nutrition. Then I'll have something that may give myself some nutrition, depending on what you choose, of course, and then I'll just go to bed. So I've gone dragging my feet all day, and they've never made any good choices. So having that first meal, it will set all your hormonal systems solid for the day. So it will help, help harmonize or balance blood sugar, insulin sensitivity, which is so closely linked with cortisol levels, which naturally should be high first thing in the morning. So having a higher fat and protein breakfast will be the most supportive thing you do. Avoiding the processed carbohydrates at that time in the morning, because that will just have a big impact on your blood glucose, which will further impact the cortisol, the adrenals, and will set you off up and down throughout the rest of the day. So having fats and protein first thing in the morning, that is the simplest and easiest thing. So eating all those eggs, having, if you do have like oatmeal, make sure you're having it with healthy fats, adding in ground nuts, seeds, make it with coconut milk. You could always add some collagen powder to it or some protein powder to it. You know, make that, don't skimp and save, don't just do like skimmed milk and oatmeal. I mean, that's just not going to be helpful. but you will notice a massive difference when you add in those fats and proteins first thing in the morning. So it could be like smoked salmon and avocado. That's really quick and easy to grab and go. And I think we overthink it, but it's just about making time for yourself, getting up 15 minutes earlier to make yourself something to either take with you or at the weekend, make a big frittata, split it into portions to have during the week. It's not.
I love
that
frittatas.
difficult.
Yeah. Or even like overnight oats, right? You pre-make it and you soak it, and by the morning, because I used to take the train to work, and it's just like my tub's ready. When I'm on the train, I'm just gonna grab my breakfast, utilizing my time, and it's easy.
Chia seed puddings, they're great and easy as well overnight.
I love them. Yeah. Yum. So Liz, you've got an up and coming workshop, and is it international?
It is.
So it's
absolutely
online and everybody can take it.
Everywhere.
Fantastic. Tell us more about the workshop.
So I have Femme Awakening that's coming up this weekend. So it's actually over 3 days. The first session is going to be at 9 a.m. GMT, so London time. So that's just after an hour coming up to your time now. Yeah. That's on Sunday morning. That's the first session, and the second session will be on Tuesday evening at 7:30 London GMT time, and that is all around kind of what we were talking about, is start looking at our natural ebbs and flows throughout the month, our monthly cycle, understanding what's happening, and then going into, on the second day, very much looking at some of the root causes of any of those hormonal imbalances. So that's a free masterclass. It's over in my Facebook group. So everyone is welcome to come.
What's the name of the Facebook group?
So it's called Femme Awakening.
Femme Awakening.
Okay. But if you go on my Facebook page, you can see the link as well.
What's your Facebook page called?
Me, Elizabeth Sargent.
There we go. And where else can we find you on social media?
On Instagram at Well Nourished Club, and that's probably like Facebook. Me on Facebook. I also have a business Facebook page, but it's kind of the same as Instagram. I don't think anyone ever sees it anymore. Back in the day, they were all the rage, and now you have to be doing lots of ads to make it worthwhile. So me on Facebook and on Instagram, Well Nourished Club. They're the main things, and then the wellnourishedclub.com is my website.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Liz. I've learned so much about hormones and also all the things about nutrition. Definitely will be jumping on to those master classes. They sound super exciting. And obviously, it's more important to take care of ourselves before we take care of everybody else, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then we can become range women because we're just going with our natural energy.
There we go. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Liz, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll catch you later. Bye.
Bye.